Hey, I'm Sophie Burrell. I'm filming this video from Southampton, Hampshire, the United Kingdom, and I'm super excited to be a part of the TrueFire and PRS road trip. For this video, I'm going to be using my wonderful SE hollow body piezo and also my PRS Custom 24 wood library. And then I'm going to be playing straight into my software with some amp plugins. As far as guitar strings go, I'm using D'Addario NYXL 10-46 gauge. And then finally, for my guitar picks, I'm using Jim Dunlop Custom Jazz 3s. The first track that I'm going to be playing is Ghost by Slash. I absolutely love this song, and I also love the album that it's from, so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you liked that little cover of Ghost there. We're going to answer a couple of questions now. So the first question I'm going to be answering is the best advice you were ever given by an older musician. The best advice that I was ever given by an older musician. That's a really tricky question. I'm not too sure how to answer that one because there's a few things that have been kind of told to me. So, I mean, kind of indirect advice to a group, but I took it to heart, was when I was sat in a Mark Tremonti guitar clinic when I was about, I think I was 14 years old, and he was just going on about metronomes and the importance of practicing to a metronome. So probably that, because once I started drilling the exercises that he gave me to a metronome, that's when my guitar playing started to kind of really take off. So I guess that's one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received from another musician. The second question, what was one of your most memorable gigs and why? Probably a show that I played with my last band, and this was probably the biggest show I ever played with them in my time there. And we played this it's not really, it's kind of local but not really, this huge steam fair festival, and it's the biggest audience I've ever played, and like the sun was setting and then the sun had set, and by the time we'd finished our set, I think we were headlining the festival that night, there was like way over 1,000 people there, and just looking out, it was just like the coolest thing ever. So probably, yeah, just because like the sheer size and the atmosphere, and it was a warm summer's night, it was just amazing. Okay, I'm gonna play another track for you now. So the next track I'm gonna play is Monster by Paramore, and this is a little more stripped back. I'm gonna do some singing as well, and I hope that you enjoy.
Solid, now you're like water. When we started drowning, it's not like we could sink any farther. But I let my heart go. It's somewhere down at the bottom, but I'll get a new one and come back from the hope that you've stolen. I'll stop the whole world. I'll stop the whole world from turning one monster and eating us alive. Don't you ever wonder how we survive? And now that you're gone, the world is ours. I'm only human. I've got a skeleton in me, but I'm not the villain. Despite what you're always preaching and call me a traitor, I'm just connecting your victims. They're getting stronger. I hear them calling. They're calling. I'll stop the whole world. I'll stop the whole world from turning into one monster and eating us alive. Don't you ever wonder how we survive? And now that you're gone, the world is ours. You'll find the strength in solutions, but I like the attention. Not always knowing the answers. You're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose it. I'll stop the whole world. I'll stop the whole world from turning into one monster and eating us alive. Don't you ever wonder how we survive? And now that you're gone, the world is. I'll stop the whole world. I'll stop the whole world from turning into one monster and eating us alive. Don't you ever wonder how we survive? And now that you're gone, the world is ours.
That was my very stripped back version of Monster by Paramore, and I hope that you liked it. I'm going to go ahead and answer another couple of questions. So the next question is, would you rather play live or in the studio? Which one is more creative for you? So, I mean, I like both scenarios for different kind of reasons. So the studio I really like because it's just so exciting to be finally laying down the songs that you've been working on for so long and writing for so long. Hearing all of the different layers come together, and like in the best production quality that it's ever been in is really something quite magical. You know, that being said, being in the studio makes me really nervous at the same time, because although obviously it's not live and you can do as many takes as you want, it's like the pressure there and then in that moment to get, you know, your take the cleanest you've ever done it, kind of, you know. So I love it for the kind of the journey that you go through when you're in the studio, you know, listening to things finally come together. And you know, at the end of it you're left with such an awesome product that you've been excited for so long, but at the same time the in the studio pressure freaks me out a little bit. But you know, generally speaking, like I've always had pleasant experiences in studio, so it's not something I don't like doing. I really enjoy it, but it makes me super nervous, but they're good nerves, I suppose. And then on the other hand, we have live performances. So I just love playing live so much. Like, you just cannot beat that atmosphere, and you can't, like, there's nothing else that I have ever done that has ever come close to playing a live show, you know, especially if it's a good one, and you've got a great crowd, and you know the vibe is just absolutely crazy. There's nothing quite like that, and the adrenaline rush you get, and people singing back your songs to you is just something like, you know, like no other. It's really special, and I almost feel like it takes you off to like a different world for a second. Like, you can forget about everything and just be really present. Like, being present is something that I struggle with a lot of the time, and I find like situations and time just kind of passes me by and I'm not necessarily there for all of it. Whereas when you're on stage and you're in that moment, it's very hard not to be present, and it's probably one of the only things that can get me kind of out of all of my thoughts and just be there, like in the moment, you know, kind of soaking up the atmosphere and the experience. So and well, not to mention it's just like so much fun as well, you know, hanging out with your band, you know, just playing your songs and having the best time doing it. I don't think there's nothing that compares to that for me. So over the two, I would actually say that I prefer playing live. And then also because like the studio is the lead up to getting to the point where you can play those new tracks live. So the studio is like the nerves and excitement, and then the live is like you finally debuting it and, you know, doing it. So yeah, I think I prefer live. It's the end result. Let's move on to one more question. What would you tell an intermediate player to make sure they didn't skip over as they are learning? So it's very easy. Well, at any stage in your guitar journey, when you are learning guitar, to kind of like play a lot, but to not necessarily be really kind of like focused. Like, your practice might be quite wishy-washy. I also teach a lot, and a classic thing that I see time and time again, and I was guilty of it too, is like practice routines and the lack of structure. Particularly when you're around the intermediate kind of level, because that's when you're kind of starting to be really independent with what it is that you are doing. And I found that any guitarists that have a practice routine that lacks structure or has no goal or anything like that, the progress is a lot slower there, and it's just not as kind of like to the point. And it's really easy if you're learning like through a course or something like that to skip through all of the content and be like, yeah, I've done that. But you might not have absorbed everything that there is to kind of gain from that particular lesson or whatever it is. So there's no shame in going back and revisiting what you are doing time and time again until you feel like you've absolutely squeezed everything you possibly can out of whatever it is you're learning, be it a solo or be it a recorded lesson or whatever it is that you're kind of like learning or learning from. And then also, so going back to the practice routine thing, it's and as I said, I was guilty of this too. Sometimes I would just sit down and noodle for hours, and although I was playing and although that's good and it's really rewarding, especially like for the soul, you're doing exactly what you love, you're not really putting your focus on anything in particular, so you're kind of like bumbling along, kind of getting better, but kind of playing the same noodles as you did yesterday and so on. So you don't really make much kind of direct progress. Whereas if you have a specific practice routine where every time you practice you're aiming for something higher or something different or something new, that is literally like, that is progress like right there in front of you. There's no two ways about it. So having a good practice routine is, I would say, the most important thing. So funnily enough, after that guitar clinic with Mark, that's when I started having a proper practice routine. I would start by warming up for about an hour, you know, to a metronome using exercises, and then I would go on and I'd be like, right, I'm going to start learning this solo today. And I might get halfway through it, or I might get all the way through it, and then I say, right, I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to warm up again, you know, for an hour with the metronome, and then I'm going to come back to this solo and I'm going to get it together to a metronome. Come back the next day, right, I'm going to get it 20 beats per minute faster the next day. So if you're setting yourselves these tiny goals at the end of each session of something that you want to accomplish, that is like the best possible way that you can be kind of reassured that you are making steady progress. So I'd say like goal setting is the most important things when it comes to making sure you kind of like get in the progress, and then also revisiting stuff so that you're not skipping over. Invest that time into music theory and scales and stuff like that. It's only there to help you in the future. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. And for the final song, I'm going to play you my single, Tranquility. I released this a few months ago, back in December of last year. And I'm going to be using, as I said before, my PRS Custom 24 wood library to do so. This is my favourite guitar of all time. Yeah, I hope that you enjoy. was my track Tranquility. I hope that you enjoyed listening to that. If you want to check it out, you can find the music video on my YouTube channel, and you can also find the track on every streaming service there is, so Spotify, Apple Music, the usual contenders. I'm going to read out one more question and answer it to finish up today. What is your best tip on getting great tone? So tone, this is something I'm still very much so learning about. Although I've been playing for 13 years, I'd still say I'm obviously on the beginning side of my kind of guitar journey given my age and stuff. So tone is something that I actually only really started understanding and paying attention to in the last 3 or 4 years, I would actually say. I always, you know, understood tone to a degree, but I was never really crazy on like finding certain tones. Like I'm still kind of the same with this. I find a tone that I like and I kind of stick with it for a lot of different things. So I have like a clean tone, a crunch tone and a lead tone that I go to for everything all the time. So my tones are very kind of like, I have what I have and that's what I use, you know. But tone, definitely, like, it's important, and I see it more so as something to enhance your playing rather than to make it. So I'm a firm believer that tone actually comes from your fingers. I often get comments and stuff like that actually on covers that I do, on solos, being like, how did you get this tone so spot on for one artist? And I'll actually be using the exact same tone that I use to play a completely different band, and people were saying the same thing there. So that's why I'm kind of a firm believer that tone is in the fingers, and it's how you play something, particularly if you're gonna like cover something. So it's getting the nuances correct of the player that you're kind of covering and stuff like that. So that's kind of one way I look at tone. Finger tone is a very big part of where tone kind of comes from, and then like tone from amps and pedals is what kind of polishes it off and makes it the end product that it kind of is and enhances it. So getting great tone, I mean, above all, like it's a creative thing, so tone is something that is very personal to you, and it should be whatever you want, you know. Some people are like really like muddy tones and other people don't. Other people like tones that are slightly more cleaned up, you know. It all boils down to personal preference. For my go-to tones, I have my best friend who's like, I didn't like your tone on this or like I would have used a different tone, you know. So whereas I've, you know, really enjoyed that tone for that particular thing I was playing, so it is entirely personal preference. But getting your ears like kind of involved as much as you can when you're tone chasing or tone building, and just kind of listening, training yourself to listen for what that tone needs to get it to the place that you want it to be. So if you think it's lacking clarity, you know, add in some more high end and kind of things like that. But again, yeah, it's completely personal to you on how you want to kind of, what your tone is. And again, it depends on what you are actually playing. So always making sure that your tone is appropriate for what it is that you are playing. So if you're doing blues, then a metal tone isn't going to be so appropriate. You know, it's just kind of gauging the feel for the vibe that you're going for, whatever it is that you are going to be, you know, playing. And above all, experiment. Don't be afraid to sound bad and, you know, go through an experimental tone phase, because that's the only way that you can kind of like get to the point where you're confident in finding tones, creating tones, and in the tone that you actually use. So just play around and have a lot of fun with it as well. Thank you so much to TrueFire and PRS for having me on here today. I'm really honoured and happy to be here. If you want to check me out further, you can catch me on Instagram at SophieBurrell1. You can catch me on Facebook and TikTok at SophieBurrellX. And you can also catch me on YouTube as Sophie Burrell. Feel free to head on over to Spotify and check out my single Tranquility there. Equally, I'm about to come out with a lot of new music with a new band, which is very exciting. So watch this space and I'll have new original tunes coming really soon. Thanks for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you later.